Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Evilswarm Yugioh deck profile for December 2024. Wanted to update the Evilswarm deck. It's one of my favorite lines of decks that we've gotten from the Dual Terminal storyline. It was actually a deck that I built solely from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Terminal when the machine was still a thing, and I actually played it for a good while as just more of a fun deck to run until it officially became legal from Hidden Arsenal 7 onward. But it's kind of been overlooked. We haven't really had new Evilswarm support over the last couple of years. I can't even remember the last time we've gotten support for this deck, but if all it takes is me updating the deck for it to get new support, I guess that's fair enough there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and we will start off with the main deck monsters. As I said, the main deck monsters haven't really changed much, so the lineup is fairly the same from the last update. So we're running 3 Evilswarm Caster. During the turn this card is normal summon. You can normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn, but this card is mostly meant to just set up your rank 4 Xyz play, which is the main playstyle of the deck to begin with. So summoning out Caster can give you another additional normal summon, and then from there you can have your 2 monsters to overlay into your Evilswarm monster of choice. The other really good engine setup is Evilswarm Yugioh. You can only use each effect of Yugioh once per turn. While this card is in the graveyard, the turn was sent there. You can normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster for 1 less tribute, but you can banish 1 Evilswarm monster from your graveyard, target 1 Evilswarm monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand, and also this card gains the following effect. This turn, you can activate this effect to normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster, giving you that additional normal summon as well, thanks to Yugioh, just by banishing another Evilswarm monster, and then giving you another normal summon to be able to go into, as long as you have that banished in your graveyard to use. We're also running 3 copies of Evilswarm Yugioh. Being a normal monster, it can be easily summoned off of other cards that we run in the deck. So having a 2 of normal monster on the field gives us more of that resource that I mentioned before for being the main play of the deck, which is to just overlay into your rank 4 Xyz monster. For the last of the 3 ofs, 3 copies of Evilswarm Mandragora. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's a resource to rely on if you go second against your opponent, because you may just need that little extended push to go into a 3 of overlay that you can use with the Mandragora special summon, the caster summoning out an additional monster, and then using all 3 for an overlay into one of your bigger Xyz monsters. With the last of the Evilswarm monsters being 2 Thunderbirds, some of the cards we run in this deck rely on more of a draw engine power as well, but also just being a card that can avoid our opponent's cards using Thunderbird's own effect can keep a monster on the field if this is one of the only ones we open up for that turn play, or once again just another card to use off of the play for Yugioh or Caster. We're also running 2 copies of Rescue Rabbit, so we have the card to banish to be able to summon out our 2 Heliotrope onto the field to then be able to overlay into. And then for the rest of the main deck monsters, a hand trap lineup, because you could really go off of just 2 Evilswarm monsters, and then the rest being hand traps in your hand. So that being 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Moonlit Chill, and then the 2 Effect Veilers, just for more of, or less, like I said, cards to restrict your other plays, because there are monsters in this deck can restrict our opponent in a pretty good amount of ways, like Evilswarm Ophion, being able to restrict level 5 or higher monsters from being special summoned while this card has Xyz material. For the spells, running 2 copies of Infestation Pandemic. All face-up Evilswarm monsters you currently control are unaffected by other spell or trap effects this turn, so it is a quick play spell as well, so you can set this card on the field and then just rely on activating this in response to anything that your opponent may try to use to get rid of your Evilswarm or Evilswarm monsters on the field. And also 3 copies of Allura Darkness, so you can draw into some of the more needed cards you may want for your plays, and then banishing the ones you don't. This is a big part of where Thunderbird comes in handy as well. For the use of our normal spells that we are running in the deck as well, running 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. If your opponent has activated a monster effect during this turn, set 1 normal spell or trap directly from your deck, except for Triple Tactics Thrust, or if your opponent controls a monster, you can add it to your hand instead. That set card cannot be activated this turn. You can activate 1 Triple Tactics Thrust per turn, so this is more or less another way to grab some other resources that we may want to use. That set card cannot be activated this turn, but then if our opponent controls the monster, we can at least grab grab that card back to our hand for us to be able to use. Some of the better targets for the normal spells that we run include the 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity, the 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent, and then the 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army, so we have the Caster Search. But Talents being able to disrupt our opponent's play since they activate a monster, or Prosperity to go into any of the other additional searches by banishing other cards from our extra deck, with the last of the spells being the 1 copy of Call by the Grave, more or less another way to interrupt any of our opponent's graveyard plays or any of their hand traps they'll try to use against us also. For the traps, I run 1 copy of Infestation Infection. Once per turn, you can shuffle 1 Evilswarm monster from your hand or face up on your side of the field into the deck to add 1 Evilswarm monster from your deck to your hand, so you can use this card to cycle out cards like Thunderbird and grab some more useful ones like Caster to our hand for us to be able to use, and also the 1 copy of Goes in Match, because the majority of cards that we use in the deck are dark attribute monsters, so then this card can really help to restrict our opponent while not really limiting us at all for our plays. And then lastly, also 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence along with the other hand traps. Just a good trap to use in response to our opponent if they end up going, first against us. For the extra deck, we are running 3 copies of Evilswarm Ophion. With this card, it needs 2 level 4 Evilswarm monsters. While this card has Xyz material, level 5 or higher monsters cannot be special summoned. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to add 1 Infestation spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So with this card, you can either add your Infestation Infection or your Infestation Pandemic, being 2 cards searchable. We're also running these for lower numbers because of the fact that they can be searched off of Ophion, just being able to grab those cards for us to use. Depending on if we have one or the other in our hand, we can use Ophion to add the other, and then just keeping the last Xyz material on this card so we can then have the play of being able to restrict our opponent from going into level 5 or higher monsters. We're also running the 1 copy of Evilswarm Bahamut for the play of being able to take our opponent's resources by detaching 1 Xyz material from this card, target face a monster our opponent controls, discard 1 Evilswarm monster, and gain control of that opponent's monster. It's a permanent take as well, so we'll always have that monster with no restrictions once we gain control of it. The 1 copy of Evilswarm Thanatos, being able to detach material from this card. This face-up card is unaffected by other monster effects this turn, so a way to get around monster effects using our extra deck. Ouroboros for more shuffle back power or bounce power, or sending cards to the graveyard. The 1 copy of Exciton Knight along with the 1 copy of Steel Swarm Roach, because they all can be summoned quite easily in this deck as well, and they work with other cards in the deck, including our Infestation Pandemic, since they have Evilswarm in their names. And then for more of the generic Xyz, I run the 1 copy of Time Thief Redoer, the 1 Abyss Dweller, the 1 Digusto Morale. This is very, very useful because we can then special summon back our Heliotropes from the graveyard, or just recycle some of our Evilswarm monsters in the graveyard back into the deck to draw a card. And then lastly, the 1 Zeus to finish off the Xyz lineup, with our Link monsters being the 1 copy of Steel Swarm Origin, more restriction for special summon from the extra deck except to the arrows where Origin points to, the 1 IP Masquerena, and then the 1 SP Little Knight to finish off the Link monsters and the extra deck. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, setting up your Evilswarm play is your big go-to one. I would say the most simple play, and then just relying on other cards you have in your hand would be the Caster, additional normal summon into your other Evilswarm monster, overlaying the 2 together into your go-to monster. That's why we're running 3 of this card, Evilswarm Ophion, so you can go for the detach of that additional monster, and then grabbing your card of choice. And then with this, you have the restriction for your opponent, which you will rely on Ophion and any other additional cards you have for the protection, whether it be your trap lineup or the hand traps that we run in the deck. So additionally, opening up these can help for any other setup your opponent may try to do. But then when the following turn comes around, you can go for the detach of another material, grabbing one additional search, and then you can use the Ophion that is on the field either for an additional summon. The better play would be if you have the search for the next caster, and then having an additional monster in the graveyard, you can then use the caster to normal summon out your Evilswarm Kyrkion. Kyrkion can then go for one additional normal summon play by banishing the monster in your graveyard. That will give you one additional resource on the field, so then you can use the next 2 monsters to go into your second Ophion, reigniting the level 5 monster lockdown, and then also being able to then use the Ophion with no materials and the 1 additional Evilswarm monster to go into another extra deck target, since we're not limited for link monsters, just level 5 or higher special summon monsters. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, I always like to update the Evilswarm deck. It's a pretty good control option if you're looking to disrupt any of your friends or opponents that really rely on a level 5 monster special summon for their deck. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.